Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking into a really disturbing true crime case. It happened back in 2009 in South London. We're talking about a devastating house fire and the tragic deaths of two young sisters, Maleha and Nabiha Masood. Our source material for this is an excerpt from a transcript. It's from a YouTube video called The Malia and Nabiha Masood Case on the channel Outlaw with Eleanor Neal. So our plan today is to unpack the timeline, look at the details of this solved case, and try to understand what actually led to such a shocking outcome. Okay, let's get into it. All right, so let's start with the family involved. The Masood family, there was the mother, Raveena. She was 55 at the time, and she had four children, two sons, Junaid, who was 17, and Zen, the older one, 24, and then two daughters, Maleha, just 15, and Nabiha, 21. It's worth noting their father had passed away about 2 years before this all happened. Now, there's a really crucial detail about the family here. They were described as very strict Muslim, and because of this strictness, Maleha, his youngest daughter, she had this secret boyfriend, Akmal Mia. He was kind of on again, off again. She'd met him in 2009 when she was only 14. They dated for a few months, split up. You know how it could be. But the family knew nothing about him.
And what's important to grasp here, I think, is the kind of pressure Maleha must have been under. Keeping a relationship secret like that, especially from a strict family, it creates this intense feeling of isolation. And that isolation can make someone really vulnerable to manipulation, maybe controlling behavior from the partner. Because the fear of being found out, it can overshadow everything else. It makes it hard to set boundaries or leave a bad situation. It's a precarious position to be in.
Yeah, that pressure definitely seems relevant here. Maleha's older brother, Zen, he talked about her. He said, being the youngest, everyone treated her like a little baby. But he also described her as a very bubbly character and very popular. And then there was Nabiha, the oldest sister, 21. She was actually engaged. Her wedding was planned for October 2009, just a few months after the fire. Zen described her as very quiet, very homely, and apparently her fiancé loved her very much. Okay, so let's move to the night itself. The night the fire broke out, it was June 21st, 2009. About 4:30 in the morning, everyone was asleep in their own bedrooms. And suddenly a fire starts downstairs in the Masood house. Just by chance, a woman named Carmen Pidikin was driving past with her daughter. She saw the smoke. She immediately started screaming, trying to wake the family up, and called 999 right away. Heroic, really. The family did wake up, but the situation was already desperate. The fire had started downstairs, near the front, and it was spreading incredibly fast. The smoke and heat filled the ground floor. They were trapped upstairs. Their only way out was...
Well, they had to jump from the upstairs windows. Zen, he was 25 then, the oldest sibling. He was the first one out. Jumped straight from his window. He said later, I instinctively went to go and get my brother and sisters, but when I got out of my room, the smoke was too thick and hot. I couldn't go into the hallway. He said, I opened the windows, looked down, and just jumped out. Just like that. Their mother, Raveena, she also managed to jump from her window to safety.
This really drives home how incredibly dangerous house fires are and how quickly they move. Often, it's not the flames themselves that are the immediate killer, it's the smoke. The toxic gases, carbon monoxide, it can incapacitate you in minutes. And when a fire starts low down, like this one apparently did, all that heat and smoke just rises straight up. Stairwells, hallways, they become death traps, completely impassable. It forces people into these extreme actions, like jumping from an investigation standpoint, finding exactly where it started. And if anything like an accelerant was used, becomes absolutely critical in these fast-moving fires.
Yeah, absolutely terrifying. So the neighbors were woken up by all the screaming from inside the house and from Carmen outside. They rushed out to help. They realized the three younger ones, Maleha, Nabiha, and Junaid, were still inside. People started smashing windows, hitting the front door. They eventually managed to break in through the back kitchen door. But the smoke was it was too thick, too hot. Nobody could go in without proper breathing gear. It was impossible. Then the firefighters arrived. They got ladders up quickly and managed to recover the three remaining family members from inside, Maleha, Nabiha, and Junaid. They were all brought out, but their injuries were just horrific. Junaid and Nabiha were taken straight to hospital, put into a specialized burns unit. Maleha, she wasn't breathing when they found her. She was at the bottom of her bunk bed. The paramedics worked on her outside, managed to get her heart beating again, resuscitated her. But she was in critical condition. Severe carbon monoxide poisoning, brain damage. She was put on life support. She held on for 3 days. The aftermath was just devastating, unfolding over weeks. On June 25, 2009, just 3 days after the fire, Malia's life support was switched off. There was nothing more they could do. The brain damage, the poisoning, it was too severe. Then, fast forward almost a month to July 20th. Zen, the older brother, he was finally discharged from hospital. He'd had treatment for severe burns, mostly healed, but still had significant burns on his hands, arms, face, and some lung damage too. Just 5 days after Zen got out, on July 25th, that was a month and a day after Malia died, Nabiha also passed away. She fought really hard, but the severe burns, the poisoning from the fumes, respiratory problems, it all led to cardiac and major organ failure. And then in August, Junaid, who was 18 by then, he was the last one discharged. He survived, thankfully, but with severe burns and lung damage as well. Apparently the skin damage on his hands was so bad he'll have to wear protective gloves for the rest of his life. So the survivors were the mother, Raveena, and the two brothers, Zen and Junaid. But Malia and Nabiha were both tragically killed by the fire. The day after the fire, it was chaos outside the house. Friends, family, reporters all gathered there. And among the crowd was Malea's secret ex-boyfriend, Akmal Mia. He was 14. Remember, they'd broken up just days before. He was apparently very distressed, sobbing, telling reporters how amazing she was. He even sent them photos of her for their articles. This display of grief, well, it got the police's attention, especially once they figured out this wasn't an accident. They determined pretty quickly the fire was arson. It was set deliberately.
And the key question then becomes, how did they know? Especially with so much destruction. Well, investigators looked for specific signs. Firstly, the origin point. It was near the front door. There weren't any obvious electrical faults or appliances there that could have started it accidentally. That's a red flag. And secondly, the clincher really was the forensic evidence. They found traces of petrol on the floor right by that door. Petrol is an accelerant, obviously highly flammable. Finding it there where a fire shouldn't naturally start, that's a classic sign of arson, points directly to it being intentional.
Right. So arson confirmed. The police started bringing people in for questioning. Akmal Mia, obviously, Malia's friends, even Nabiha's fiancé, not because they suspected him, but just to understand the family, if they had any enemies, that sort of thing. And during his questioning, Akmal Mia kept up this distressed act, saying things like, I love her so much, I can't believe she's dead, over and over. But, and here's where it starts to unravel. When the police talked to Malea's friends, they heard a very different story about the relationship. They said Malia and Akmal argued constantly, that he could be controlling. Some friends apparently didn't even think he really liked her as much as he pretended to. Remember, it was a short relationship, maybe 3 months total. On again, off again, lots of arguments, breakups, getting back together. And the friends revealed something really disturbing. Akmal apparently used blackmail. Whenever Malia tried to break up with him after a fight, he'd threaten her, threatened to tell her strict family about their secret relationship. And Malia was terrified of that happening, so she'd often just go back to him. So police got a warrant for Akmal's phone records. And what they found was, well, intense. In the 87 days before Malia died, Akmal had texted or called her 1,679 times.
Yeah, that number sounds huge. If you break it down, it's about 20 texts or calls a day on average. Now, for some teenagers today, constantly connected, maybe that doesn't seem that excessive on its own. Depends on the dynamic. But when you put it together with everything else, the friend saying he was controlling, the blackmail threats, it stops looking like normal teenage communication. It starts looking more like harassment, maybe coercive control. Investigators look at the pattern and the content, not just the number. Was he demanding, abusive? Did it spike after arguments? The whole context here definitely suggests an attempt to control her through, well, intimidation and manipulation. Huge red flag.
And some of the actual messages were just chilling. Things like, I don't want to show you with anyone else. I want you all to myself. You're my dream girl. I'm not letting you go. I need a girl. Like, I need your hand. I can see having my baby. Really possessive, obsessive stuff. Then came the final breakup, June 17th, 2009, just 3 days before the fire. Malia ended it with him, for good this time. And that very same night, Akmal followed through on his threats. He called the Masood house phone. He actually spoke to Malea's mother, Raveena. He told her, she's finished with me. She has loads of friends take the phone off her. Trying to get Malia in trouble, expose her. He even added, when Malia was studying, she was talking to me. When she was using the computer, she was talking to me. Now, 2 days later, June 19th, the night right before the fire, Akmal called Malia again. This time, the threats escalated massively. He apparently made physical threats, said he would, and this is a direct quote, fuck her family up, and it told her, watch what I'm going to do. Malia was terrified, crying. She finally told her mother everything. Raveena then got on the phone with Akmal. He just kept saying, I love her, over and over. Raveena told him such things were not done in their religion and hung up the phone. Understandably, these calls, these direct threats, the police found them highly suspicious. So they seized Akmal's laptop.
And what they found on that laptop was, frankly, the nail in the coffin for any claims of innocence. It was incredibly damning evidence. Forensic teams looked at it and found two crucial things. First, his laptop background image, or maybe it's the screensaver. It was a picture of the Masood house after the fire, burnt down. That shows a really disturbing fascination with the crime scene itself. But second, and possibly even more chilling, his Google search history from the night before the fire. It included the exact phrase, how to burn someone's house down. I mean, that's direct evidence, premeditation, intent. It paints a very clear picture of planning.
Just unbelievable. And the evidence kept piling up. Akmal's call records showed something else significant. On the night of the fire, he'd made calls to two other people, his 21-year-old cousin, Shahibuddin Chowdhury, and another teenager, a 19-year-old named Russell Khan. So with all this, the police arrested all three of them, Akmal, Shahibuddin, and Russell. The charges were 2 counts of murder for Maleha and Nabiha, and 3 counts of attempted murder for Raveena, Zen, and Junaid. All three denied everything. And then, a search of Akmal's house. They found empty petrol cans in his bedroom, which lined up perfectly with the theory that they'd poured petrol to the letterbox and lit it. And there was more. A local shop owner came forward, said he remembered something from that night. He told police that 2 young guys who matched the descriptions of Akmal and Shahibuddin came into his corner shop late that night, and they bought a box of matches. Just matches. He thought it was a bit odd, maybe, but didn't think much of it until he heard about the house fire nearby just hours later. Then he made the connection. So all 3 boys went to trial.
Russell Khan, the 19-year-old, he was actually found not guilty on all charges. Seems the phone call record was really the only solid piece of evidence against him, and it wasn't quite enough. Akmal Mia, though. During his trial, he tried to pin everything on his cousin Shahibuddin. Claimed it was all Shahibuddin's idea, that Shahibuddin poured the petrol, Shahibuddin lit the match, basically trying to save his own skin.
But the jury didn't buy it, and you can see why. The evidence against Akmal himself was just too strong, those internet searches, how to burn someone's house down. The picture of the burnt house on his own laptop, the documented threats he made himself. All of that pointed directly to his involvement in the planning, his intent. It showed he wasn't just some kid led astray, he was central to it, regardless of who physically performed the final act. It's a powerful example of how digital evidence, those digital footprints, can be absolutely crucial in court.
Exactly. So in the end, both Akmal Mia and his cousin Shahibuddin Chowdhury were found guilty on all charges. For sentencing, Akmal Mia got life in prison with a minimum term of 23 years before he could be considered for parole. Shahibuddin Chowdhury also received a life sentence with a slightly lower minimum term of 21 years. So what does this all mean? Looking back at this case, it's just heartbreaking. You have this young relationship, clearly toxic, filled with control, secrets, fear, and it's just spiraled into this absolute unimaginable tragedy. 2 young lives lost, a family destroyed.
It really underscores how vital it is to recognize these patterns. Coercive control, threats, emotional blackmail. Especially in young relationships. These aren't just minor relationship issues or teenage drama. They are serious warning signs. Red flags that things can escalate, sometimes incredibly quickly, into horrific violence.
Yeah.
Understanding that and understanding the impact on someone who feels trapped or isolated like Malia might have, it's just so important.
Yeah. This whole case, it really highlights the hidden dangers, doesn't it? The complexities that can exist behind closed doors, the devastating impact of secrets, and what happens when conflict isn't resolved. It definitely leaves you thinking, what responsibility do we all have, maybe as a community, to educate young people about healthy relationships, about recognizing these warning signs, and how can we better support people who might feel trapped or threatened like Malia did? It's a heavy thought to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into such a difficult case. If you found this exploration compelling, please do like this video, share it, and subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs. We bring you more deep dives into chilling stories regularly. We appreciate you listening, and we'll be back soon with another deep dive.